Hi everybody, this is just a quick tutorial to demonstrate how you can use the Artisan tools in SketchUp to regrade your site for your master plan. Once you place the buildings on the site, what you'll find out, maybe not quite as extreme as this, but some of those townhouses, once you hook them together, could be quite long. So you'll see places where there are gaps. I just placed these buildings on this terrain just to show you how we can go through. Now, of course, with Artisan, in this case, I've made a group. It doesn't have to be, but for later on, I'm going to show you how to add the trees using scatter, and we need a group for that. So I'm just going to keep that group together. So I need to open that group, and I can still see the buildings as long as they're grayed out there. Now, another thing that's really helpful is to actually go under View, Hidden Geometry, because you don't need to see it, but it does help you see how the landform is moving. It's hard just with the smooth surfaces to tell exactly how much and what angle these are changing to. So the first place I would start, you can go in there, of course, here's the Artisan tools in my computer up at the top here. This is the Sculpt brush, Select brush, Paint brush, which we're not going to use today. And then there's the Make Planar brush, and we will use that. So if you wanted to start completely by interactively manipulating the terrain, you just choose the Sculpt brush, and the right and left arrows. Right arrows make it the circle of influence bigger, left of arrows smaller. And then for the up and down arrows, this determines how extreme the change is. And I usually keep that relatively small because I like to gradually mold it instead of having a lot of change all at once. It's difficult to control. Now, you can also go up here and click on the settings. One of the things you really want to do is make sure your auto sculpt is on, and I think by default it's set to off. So you can click on the toolbar here, set this to on, and click OK. And you can also, under Tools, there's an Artisan menu, and you can pull up the settings down here as well. Either way. So I've got that so it's set on. Now, if I just wanted to start sculpting, I can come in here and sculpt over that, just kind of bring this up, and keep working through that. But one of the things that if you want these on a level plane surface, then there's a lot quicker way to do it, and that is just to use the Select tool and to come in here. In this case, I'm going to make my radius a little bigger. Start here. I'm going to just notice I can go right under that house. I don't need to get all this out here, so I'm going to pull my circle a little bit, hold the shift down, and I can get rid of some of that. So if you want to do a square or rectangle, you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just kind of getting hold the shift key down, come back in and select that. Okay, let's just say I'm going to take that rectangle. Maybe it's a little more than I need. I'm going to hold shift and maybe get rid of that. Okay, so with that selected, I'm going to come up here and click on my Make Planar command, and it defaults to best, but in this case I want a level platform for my building, so I'm going to choose X and Y, which are the red and green axes, and you'll notice it just makes that perfectly level. Now in this case actually worked pretty good because I kind of had it split a little bit. Didn't really plan that, but if it doesn't work the way you want it to, you can simply go back to SketchUp's regular move tool, come over here, click on a corner, and tap the up arrow, and it'll give you the blue axis. So if I really want that a little lower, or you can see it's coming up on the building there, if I want it just down to where it hits there, there we go, I set that. Now I've got a nice platform. Okay, now don't worry that it's kind of rough here. I think what I'll do is show you how we can go in. Let's do the same thing for these, and maybe in this case over here, I'll actually slope it down along so it's higher at the top and smaller at the bottom, and I can show you how to do it. Then we'll come back and blend these together using the Sculpt brush. So now that that's done, let's go back, choose my Select tool. You can hit the Escape key and it will deselect the previous ones. Okay, and again, I'm going to come around here and just select. Maybe I'll get out in front there a little bit. Hold the Shift key down, get rid of that one. As long as you click on somewhere outside the building, you can kind of go underneath the building. And let's get these out of here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now in this case, instead of using level, let's say I want this to be higher, maybe this is 1 floor and 2 floors at the other end down here. So instead of using planar, I'm going to click on my make planar, or instead of using XY, I am going to just choose best. And you can see that kind of picks a slope that and averages it out across that. And then I can use the same method I did before by selecting the move tool and simply tap the up arrow key, and now I can see there's the full walkout at this end. And again, I've got some adjustments to make in here, but now I've got that sloping along the slope. And let's come back over to this one and do the same thing. Hit the escape key to deselect those other surfaces. I come in here. Once you know you're selecting something, you can slide your cursor. So I'll start here and then slide under the building to make sure I'm getting everything under there selected. Okay, that looks pretty good. Shift, deselect these here. Shift, deselect these. Shift, deselect these. Okay, so let's go back and do our make planar again, but let's choose XY for this one. Click OK. Now, right now these are kind of level, but let's say maybe I want to use the move tool and tap the up arrow, and I want to put this one at a slightly higher elevation than the one down here. Okay, so you can see very quickly I've got these 3 platforms set for my buildings. They can either be level or sloping. And now what I want to do is kind of fix this landform, blend this a little bit, do some regrading. So in that case, I'm going to go back to my sculpt brush. And instead of using the actual sculpt option, I'm going to right click and choose smooth. And in this case, I'm going to move my influence up a little bit more and maybe that out. So now I can come in here and it's going to start to reduce the influence a little bit. It actually kind of blends those surfaces together. If you start with lower, it'll kind of pull that up. If you start with the upper, it'll push it down. So I can start on a high point or a low point. And this is just to kind of blend this all out to make it kind of look like it's not hard surfaces. I'm careful not to get too close to the buildings there, as I don't want to move the grade against the building. Reduce this a little bit. So I'm not pushing it up or down, it's just trying to average and soften the transition between the 2 surfaces. It works very nicely to kind of regrade your site that way. So anywhere you see abrupt changes, you just go in there and blend that off. Now in this case, there's a lot of change here, so let's say I really wanted to make this a little more level out here between these buildings. So I'm going to come in here, fill that in. Maybe I'm going to take a little bit of this site out, grade that down, go back up, switch to my smooth option. Okay. And again, unless this is going to be a retention basin, can use a smooth to pull that up some, but if I really want to change it, I'll reduce that a little bit, go back to sculpt, and then maybe I wanted to terrace it down or something, I can pull that down a little bit more, and then move that back up, go back to smooth. So there you go. Really works nicely, gives you a really free-form way. You can remember what that looked like before. It's pretty rough, and now those units fit in there very nicely. And if you want to see how that works in terms of contours, I can turn off my hidden geometry. And because this is a group, I can go under extensions and choose contours. Let's do a 1 foot. And it'll take a little time to go through here and run through this process. If you try and do this on the entire site for your master plan, it may not work for that size of site. I tried to run through it and I had a little trouble on here, but but you don't really need the contours on the master plan. We can do those once we get down to the, or you just simply change the contour interval. I tried to run it with 1 foot contour interval, so you could probably go with 5 foot, which I think is what the original contours that we were starting with, that was the contour interval. But this allows you to run through and actually see what the proposed contours would look like. But either way, whether you run the contours or not, it's just kind of for information right now. It's a really super easy way to be able to see what the landform looks like and be able to adjust things, whether it's to level a platform for an apartment building or a single family unit, or whether you want to have more of a sloped or stepped grade around units that either go from end to end, or you could also slope it from front to back. You might have the entrance on the first floor and a walkout basement on the second floor.